Good evening, I'm Killian.
And I'm ZeroFoxGiven.
And you're listening to Dormal Talk.
The haunted railroad tracks of San Antonio. Just south of San Antonio, Texas, is the site of Texas's most famous ghost story. Not far from the San Juan Mission is an intersection of the roadway that is crossed by railroad tracks. Whether this is an urban legend or truly a ghostly tale has long been forgotten in history. Reportedly, this is the site of a fatal accident in which a train collided with a school bus full of children in the 1930s or the 1940s. According to the legend, it was a rainy Texas morning as the train moved swiftly down the tracks when the engineer spotted a school bus stalled along his path. Frantically pulling his brakes and tugging on the train whistle, the hulking engine quickly advanced towards the bus, unable to stop in time. 10 children reportedly lost their lives that day and continue to haunt the area, protecting others from a similar fate. As the story goes, if you park your car directly over the tracks and shift into neutral, the ghosts of the children will push it uphill out of the way of an oncoming train. If you have the foresight to cover your bumper with baby powder or flour, you can reportedly see the children's fingerprints on your car. Despite the much publicized story, its truth has been hotly debated in San Antonio, and both area residents and local law enforcement are wary of the legend. Numerous accounts have been reported that cars do in fact inexplicably move on their own, and mysterious prints are seen on vehicles. Others allege they have heard the voices and laughter of children while at the site.
Well, shiver me timbers, that was a spooky one, and I'm not gonna lie. The sheer fact that so many different people have corroborated this. Now, it sounds crazy, but it just seems like a pretty widely accepted truth that, the cars move and the prints appear. It doesn't sound like one or two people are saying this.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that because I have the actual exact opposite reaction to it. Been to the site a few times. People say that it's like uphill, but it's actually a gradual decline. It's really strange. I do not understand how this legend got off the ground. And I'm not saying the legend about the bus thing. I'm talking about the kids pushing you. So, again, going in with rational brain, spraying talcum powder on the back. Texas is very humid. So the oils in your fingers for whenever you open up your trunk or whatever can stay on there. So couple that with talcum powder and the humidity, then those fingerprints aren't kids' fingerprints. They're your fingerprints.
From earlier.
Not necessarily that day, because fingerprints stay for a while.
If it hasn't rained.
Even if it rains. Because of the oils in your hands, they don't wash off easily. Now, if you got it waxed or detailed recently, you probably won't get anything. But outside of that, however, there's a few things about this. The story's always struck me because in the area, all the streets have children's names. It's like the street itself is called Shane. So the alleged story that I was told is in that area, the streets are named after the kids that died that day. And from the version that I heard, it was supposedly a nun that was there with them. It was like the bus driver and then nuns that were there taking them to some Catholic kids school, possibly even to San Juan Mission, and it got stuck. So the nun came out to try to help push while the bus driver tried to crank it, and that's when the train comes, collides. Allegedly, it didn't happen, but that's the story that I was told. That's what I heard about it. But on a more interesting factoid, this is located less than a mile and a half away from the Bexar County Boys House. And I kid you not, you drive up to the end of Shane, I forget what the name of that road is, you turn right, you'll pass the actual mental institution that's still there, which people confuse with the Bexar County Boys House. You turn left, and right behind the current detentionary facility is our good old friend, the Bexar County Boys House.
Wow, would you imagine that? Wouldn't you be surprised to know?
I was like, wait a second, because we came in the other way. We came in from the Mission San Juan area, and we came up because actually, funny story on that one. We had some guy chasing us and trying to play chicken with us. It was a very awkward and interesting night, and so that was the first time I had gone there. I was there with quite a few friends. I had a Dodge Caravan at the time, and we had a bunch of people in there with us. And so we went there. Then when we went over to the Bexar County Boys House, I knew that area well, but what I didn't realize or know is that where you come up on Shane, where it ends, is that street, because we came from the other side. So we came off, it was Division Road, and we came up there, and there's actually a cemetery before you get there, and there's a bunch of like little eerie stuff and like a little mini municipal airport, and then you come up and around through the missions, and then there's this place that they call like Slaughterhouse. And but it was like a legit slaughterhouse, and it's actually on the train tracks, but it's like maybe about 2 miles down the road before you get to where the haunted part is. And then even more so crazier, one time when we went to the ghost trek, there's like a little pathway that is off the side of the tracks before coming up towards the way to the Barrett County Boys House. If you would go straight, there's literally like a small little path that a vehicle can fit through. And I kid you not, we went in there by accident because we were just trying to explore, but then when we realized, wait a second, like this doesn't really come out, it leads out to a weird trailer type thing that seems like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there was like just a weird vibe there.
Yeah,
like we
sure.
reversed out of there and got out of there quick, but I know that the freaking homeowner saw us, and that was creepier than anything I ever experienced on the tracks. And that was just like maybe about, walking wise, probably about a 5-minute walk from the tracks, and driving wise, it was like 30 seconds.
You gotta be careful
creepy.
going on to other people's property in Texas. You never know what that could entail.
Especially when you see that. To be fair, I'm not even sure if that's a legal like establishment or place, because of the way that it's hidden. Like it looks like it's just like a road that was chopped. It wasn't like a city maintained road or made. Like that person maybe went out there illegally, but I sure as heck wasn't about to stick around and find out. Yeah, that one was crazy. Like I kid you not. Like if you've ever seen, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that kind of looked like the house that they lived in. Like no joke, it just gave and it's not even in that area. I've been to the spot where they filmed it and like everything.
Yeah.
Driven through there. And it's nowhere near. It's hours away from San Antonio, and this is actually south of San Antonio, so it's even further away from here. Yet this place looked almost identical, and it was eerie as heck.
Vibes.
Kia Mill. Built almost a century ago, the Kia Mill quietly resides in the historic downtown section of Murrieta, California. Originally built in 1918. For local farmers to store their grain in bulk before transporting the goods to Los Angeles. The Kia Mill has become known as one of the most haunted places in California. Others include the Point Sur Lighthouse, the Queen Mary, and the Preston Cancel. Standing 100 feet tall, the concrete grain elevator continued to operate into the late 1970s before closing down. The old bin quickly became a popular subject for locals itching to explore the eerie landmark, as it was boarded up in 1991. Looming over the quaint homes in the area, the Kia Mill is speculated by many as being haunted by ghosts, particularly the spirit of the little girl in a blue dress. Legend has it, adventurers visiting the Kia Mill at night see a little girl in the blue dress in the window atop the mill. She is said to be giggling, screaming, or sometimes shrieking, and instills a sense of dread and sadness to those who dare come close. Of course, the Kia Mill has endured 100 years of scorching fire and numerous trespassers in search of paranormal activity, but remains a staple of history in Murrieta. City officials have plans to construct the Kia Mill into part of the Pioneer Park, perhaps as a restaurant or attraction. However, the Kia Mill has a tendency to thwart such plans and continues to stand alone. So yet another site that I've been to.
Did you see the girl in the blue dress?
I did not.
Thank the Lord.
I went looking. I really did. You definitely get an eerie vibe in there. I went under into like the basement area, and I was able to get like some pictures straight up. Unfortunately, kind of like with the Barrett County Boys House.
Yeah.
I had them up on MySpace.
Oh.
Because it's been like years. But when they did their reformatting, I couldn't get any of the pictures back, which bums me out because all the way to the top, you can see straight through. Like there's it seems like there's no platforms like to walk up, so I can get into the basement part and under it, and then when you look up, it looks like there's nothing to get into the windows. So if somebody did see something in the windows at any point, it would have to have been some kind of creature, or it had to have been an apparition, because from what I saw when I was in there, you cannot be standing on there. It can't even be people messing with you because there was like no place to stand.
Physically impossible to get up there.
Yeah, at least from what I saw. Mind you, it was night, but from what I saw and in the area, it's possible on the opposite end there might be some stairs and maybe a small platform towards the top, but directly where I was at, so if you're looking at it, it's technically on the south end. You really can't see like any kind of stairways or anything like leading up, so if somebody was to get up there, like I would be very impressed and confused at the same time because there's no platform that I saw.
If I was driving by and I saw this place, on my way to wherever, I do have a handful of friends that would want to stop, pull over and check it out just because of the sheer visual nature of it. It is creepy to look at, but it's also kind of alluring. Looks like it pulls you in a little bit.
It's funny that you say that because while you can't see it from the freeway, it's not very far from the freeway. Now, I'm not going to go into full details of where it's at. It should be really easy for you to find if you Google it. But what you could do is if you happen to head on the 15 North and exit California Oaks, I'm just saying, turn left, and that's about as much information as I'll give you. Figure it out from there.
The Donkey Lady Bridge. Texas has plenty of ghost stories to keep us up at night, but one of the oldest and most popular is that of the Donkey Lady Bridge. The bridge itself is just a short drive from San Antonio, easy to reach and to find, and may host one of the most terrifying apparitions that Texas has to offer. The true origins of the Donkey Lady Bridge legend are unknown. The tale has been around long enough that there are multiple versions of it. Supposedly, it all started when a farming family living outside San Antonio met a horrific end. The farmer set fire to his home, murdered his children, and left his wife horribly disfigured. Her fingers were melted down to stumps, creating hoof-like appendages, and the skin on her face was charred and gave her face an elongated, donkey-like appearance. Grieving the loss of her children and the betrayal of her husband, she haunts Elm Creek and torments those who try to cross. Of course, there are other variations. While Weird Texas favors the story's time of origins being sometime in the 1950s, others seem to think it's been around since the 1800s. According to one variation of the story, it wasn't the farmer who caused the fire, but a stranger who came across the family in his travels. In this version, the family keeps a donkey and the stranger begins to beat it mercilessly until they chase him away. Later that night, he returns and sets their home on fire, killing the farmer and the children. The mother forces her way out of the house, screaming in agony, her body already disfigured to resemble a donkey. She chases the cruel arsonist away and falls into the river, but her body is never found. The Donkey Lady is a popular tale in San Antonio. People of all ages head out to the bridge to see if they can catch a glimpse of her. Some people experience nothing but jitters and the feeling of being watched, but others claim to have seen something out there. Some folks claim to have witnessed a creature with a donkey's face screaming at them from the window, and later found hoof-like indentations on their car. Many people hear rushing hoof claps when they visit. The best way to get her attention is by honking your horn. So have you ever been to this bridge yourself?
Multiple times. I've never really experienced anything weird there. The area is definitely creepy, and you get kind of that vibe that they're talking about, but I haven't seen anything. The strangest thing that happened to me there was I found a flashlight on the floor. It was abandoned. It looked old, but it actually worked still. I might still have it somewhere in my collection of random things, but basically that's the weirdest thing. It does sometimes feel like there's people watching you, but there's so many people that go there. I mean, when I found the flashlight, it looked like there had been people there, and I'm not talking about like out there living there or something. Like, it looked like somebody was exploring and dropped stuff there, or they're just, like not really caring about the environment. The cool and weird thing about it is that bridge they kept intact, but like the story says, they did block off the entry point to it, so you can't get there with a car. You can only get there on foot. But on the other side, the freeway that it used to connect to, which was 1604, it still runs there, but there's no way to get to the bridge there unless you go over an embankment and down. But that used to be a one-way bridge. So aside from the Donkey Lady stories, there used to be a lot of accidents there because it was two-way traffic, one-way bridge. So sometimes cars would go at the same time, and people, especially in Texas, don't like to go the speed limit. So
Sure.
it's very interesting. But I've never experienced anything bad. We believed they were possibly growing some illegal weed there at some point because we saw some plants that looked like it, but we can't fully confirm it. I was there with some friends multiple times, and again, never anything scary. Nothing like the other places that I've been to, but it's definitely a cool spot to check out. And it does give you an eerie feeling, but nothing really scary or supernatural happened to me.
Scary Dairy. On October 12th, 1936, the Camarillo State Mental Hospital opened its doors, taking in the sick and mentally ill. Not just a single building, but an entire campus of buildings. The hospital was very successful, and by 1957 had grown to over 7,000 patients. Of course, there are tales that the hospital participated in lots of extreme therapy, such as electroshock therapy and lobotomies, amongst other therapies that might now be considered a form of torture. But one form of therapy that was definitely practiced, which has no semblance of torture and in fact was meant to help provide rehabilitation, involved the establishment of a dairy nearby the hospital. Patients that were able participated in working at this dairy, taking care of the animals and growing vegetables. The food produced from the therapy programs at this dairy went directly to feeding the inmates and the staff at the hospital. Sadly, in the 1960s, the hospital closed the dairy, simply abandoning the buildings. By 1997, the hospital also closed and was left slowly falling apart until fall of 2002 when the campus reopened as California State University's Channel Islands. In 2009, the college added on the 367-acre piece of land that contained the dairy and incorporated it into its holdings, setting it up currently as a park with hiking trails and other amenities. For something like 50 years, the building that made up the working dairy had been left in some sort of state of arrested decay. Now, due to extreme vandalism and tagging, the two main structures are behind fences and the park is heavily patrolled by people on horseback. One structure is clearly a barn-like building, although it has a skeleton appearance to it now. The second main building had several rooms, all of them heavily graffitied. Ceilings and walls have collapsed, but still the structure is very much a maze of vandalized rooms and graffiti-painted passageways. The third structure appeared more like a coral-like structure, possibly, also with areas necessary for milking cows. Of course, urban legends and ghost stories abound about that place. Some state that patients were forced to slaughter animals in the dairy. Others say murders happened there. In some stories, it's patients murdering people, and others, it's staff murdering patients. Another story states that the building was heavily damaged by a fire. All of these are probably just colorful stories, mostly. Still, the location was an actual working dairy for a very large mental institution that is now abandoned, heavily collapsed, thoroughly vandalized, and extremely graffitied. The entire site can give off a very creepy feel, and I'm sure that at night it can be positively terrifying. Some of the graffiti also was designed to add a creepy vibe.
Fun little fact, there's a little shack that kind of looks like how the dairy farm used to be, and after listening to this story, it's possible that it was part of it at one point, but it's a little bit of ways from it. Like, we're talking about a 5-minute walk from Scary Dairy. Then that was pretty creepy too. But this one, so I went there with a friend of mine, and while we were there, we took pictures that I will post up right here in the video. These pictures I took myself of the place. We found like a boat there. Like, the barn skeleton when we went was actually pretty messed up. It was like in 2009, but it was still standing like fully. Like, now if you look at it from the looks of it, it's like just the top and not the top, just the front and the back are still up, and the side walls, the opening over the top is just gone. From what I understand. But when I went, like, it was actually still more full, and you can even see it in some of the pictures that I took. And then the back area where they're talking about where they had the cows and stuff. No joke. When they say it's graffitied up, it is insane. I have some pictures of the graffiti also that I'm posting up in here. It was weird because we walked in there and we went through different parts of the mazes of how they're set up, and we heard what sounded like some scratching, and we just hear like the scratching noise, and it's progressively getting louder, and we lead it into a room, and my friend came in from one way, I came from the other way, and then we looked down, and we both get to the area from different spots from where we hear that, and he looks at me and he's all like, were you just trying to mess with me, like, honestly, like, or what? I was like, no, like, what about you? You just messing with me? He's like, no. He's like, we hear the sound, but there's nothing there. Like, there's a sound, we're right where the sound is coming from, but nothing is there. So we're like, all right, this is creepy. So it didn't scare us enough to have us leave, so we continued walking around, looking around. That's where we took these pictures, and we're just lighting with our flashlights and everything. And then we start to head out, and then we get back to the car. At the time, I had a Chevy Malibu, and in the disc holder, I had a little mixtape that I had made, essentially, but it was a CD, but it was like a mix with different songs and artists, and we were listening to Stone Sour, and it was the song Through the Glass, but the song itself was like distorted and like really slow, and it was really weird, and you know, we looked at each other like, what the hell? So we left. I ejected the CD, put it back in, and it played fine. However, like, for the moment, it was like super slow and like stretched out, and it was like distorted to all heck.
I would have ejected it and thrown that CD right out the window.
I mean, I did eject it, but I didn't throw it out the window. I put it back in. Mind you, like, yes, I go to these haunted places and I do these weird things, but the thing about it is, I don't go in with like, I'm gonna see a ghost mentality. I go in with rational brain and try to rationalize the heck out of everything that happens, just because, like, I don't fully believe that something paranormal could happen or will happen, but that's also what makes it more interesting when I'm doing said paranormal thing.
Yeah, I remember from the last episode, you very rationally just took a dead bobcat and put it in the back of your friend's car.
I'm talking about rationalizing the hauntings, not rationalizing the actions. I was in my 20s.
That's a classic maneuver.
Thank you for joining us on Dormal Talk. Please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be at you with another episode soon. And as always, have a wonderful day.